Okay, thank you for the invitation to speak today. My name's Charmaine Beer and I'm a policy lead in the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. And I work mainly on extended producer responsibility. So that can be for packaging, it can be for batteries, end-of-life vehicles. But today I'm going to talk to you about food packaging. So the two reforms that I'm going to give you an overview of today are a deposit return scheme for drinks containers and also extended producer responsibility EPR for packaging. So we are due to go out very soon on public consultations on both of these. This follows on from public consultations in 2019, which showed overwhelming support by the public for the deposit return scheme for drinks containers and also for reform of the existing EPR scheme. So our minister and department have ambitious targets for recycling and reducing waste, and the measures that I'm going to talk about today and give you an update on will help to meet those targets. So as well as the department that I work for, this is a kind of a bigger piece of commitment as well from the Northern Ireland Executive. So in the New Decade, New Approach, there's an agreement for the Northern Ireland Executive to create a plan to eliminate plastic pollution. And we've committed through the Circular Economy Package to an overall municipal waste recycling rate of 65% by 2035, and our Northern Ireland recycling rate is around 51% for this. So the two regimes for reform will significantly contribute to meeting these commitments. Legislative power for the new regimes will be contained in the Environment Bill, which is currently moving through Westminster. And the proposals are quite far-reaching, so they're wider than just municipal waste or single-use plastics. So I'll run over the deposit return scheme first of all. The proposals that we'll consult on later this year include proposals for inclusion of PET plastic bottles, glass bottles, steel and aluminium cans. The collection of deposit return scheme material is going to create uncontaminated resource streams that can be used in a more circular economy. So things like plastics that are collected, they're collected in a very segregated way and create a resource stream that has a higher commercial value and will drive better use of the material. Refill containers will be excluded. We encourage a wide use refill of containers. They're going to be excluded from the deposit scheme, as will HDPE plastic, which is mainly used for milk. About 81% of those cartons are used for milk. We'll be seeking views on whether we go for an all-in scheme, which would be containers up to 3 litres, or an on-the-go for smaller containers, which are commonly littered, so 750 millilitres. Scotland are already going ahead with the deposit return scheme for drinks, and they're hoping to bring in an all-in scheme by 2022. And Wales are also committed to an all-in scheme. So deposit return schemes have proved very popular and effective in other European countries. You pay a small deposit on top of the price that you pay for drink, and then you get that deposit back when you return that item, the container, for recycling. So you can usually return them through reverse vending machines, such as the one in this picture, or for smaller premises, they would be obligated to take the actual containers back manually. Oversight of these schemes would be oversight would be by a deposit management organisation, and a scheme should be designed so that it's as easy for consumers to return their containers as it is to purchase. And we've already got some of the main retailers trialling some of these reverse vending machines in their store. Proposals will have built-in safeguards so that, there's sensible application of the scheme, so that small shops are not expected to have very large reverse vending machines inside. Also, smaller shops wouldn't be expected to take back large quantities of material that they wouldn't normally sell. And there's also going to be protection for religious beliefs, such as retailers who don't wish to handle containers that would have contained alcohol. One of the main questions about a deposit return scheme is how much would the deposit be? It's usually estimated to be around 20% is a good level. The level would be set by the management organisation, but we're also going to be seeking views on whether a level should be set in legislation. It needs to be high enough to incentivise a good return rate on the actual containers, but not so high as to give a disproportionate cost overall to the product. We're also going to be seeking views on digital solutions to a deposit return scheme. And you'll hear today from Eric and Bryson House about some trials running in Northern Ireland, and they're also running in other places in the UK, on how a digital scheme could integrate with household collections. One thing to clarify would be that the hospitality sector would not have to pass on a deposit to consumers if the actual drink is going to be consumed in store. They would recoup the deposit directly from the management organisation when they return the containers. It's expected that the increase in recycling for drinks containers in the scheme could increase from 70 to 90%. And 90% is not considered overly ambitious at all. Some countries with good DRS schemes have shown return rates of up to 98%. And this would also have an associated reduction of littering, as there's going to be less loss through the system. And implementation is aimed for around 2024. So moving on to extended producer responsibility for packaging. The proposals for reform of the system would actually put responsibility of the full net costs of managing packaging waste onto those businesses that put packaging onto the market. So this is the polluter pays principle. Currently, the costs paid by producers are expected to only be around 10%. So the full net cost of managing packaging waste that's placed on the market includes collecting, sorting and recycling of waste from households and businesses, and also costs associated with litter and refuse management. One of the main goals of the scheme is to incentivize businesses to design and use better packaging that's easier for reuse and recycling by having a varying amount of fees within the scheme, so modulated fees. So the producer pays according to the packaging format that they use. Currently, the thresholds for obligated producers in the scheme are that they handle around 50 tonnes or more a year and have a turnover of 2 million per annum. It's proposed that these thresholds would be lowered to around 25 tonnes and 1 million, but that is all within the consultation. Producer costs through the new scheme will increase significantly to be in the region of around 2.7 billion per year in the UK. So this corresponds to around 35 million in Northern Ireland. And this transfer of costs will be mainly from the public purse and through waste collections in local councils to the producers of packaging. Other goals would be to improve the quality of labelling on packaging to identify how recyclable a product is. So this enables a consumer to make a good decision or a more informed decision when they first of all purchase a product, and also how they dispose of that product when they've finished with it. There's also options for separately collecting plastic film from curbside for recycling to increase recycling rates, and also seeking views from retailers on selling disposable paper cups and whether they should be mandated to facilitate a take-back service. As we've all seen, these are very commonly littered items. We've had a big shift in consumption of these items over the course of the last year during the pandemic, and there's large concern about how these products are now being used. A phased approach to EPR implementation would be proposed from around 2023. And the recycling rate for UK packaging could increase from 60 to 78% by 2030. There would be targets set out for individual materials such as glass, card, paper, plastic, wood as well, because this includes pallets and other types of packaging, and those would exceed those set down by Europe currently. So litter is a major problem in Northern Ireland. And if anyone hasn't actually come across the recent Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful report on litter composition, it's available on their website through a series of systematic surveys across Northern Ireland. They have an estimate that at any one time, there's 1.3 million items of litter on our streets. And almost half of this is littered packaging, so 47.6%, which is a shocking amount. In that littered packaging, you get the usual suspects: drinks cans, confectionery and crisp wrappers, plastic bottles, bottle packaging, of course, the single-use disposable cups, and cigarette packaging. So the reforms that we're hoping to consult on very soon include these proposals for EPR and DRS, which would reduce the cost of littering to the ratepayer, and also would increase recycling rates of drinks containers, which would also reduce littering. And the EPR measures I've outlined would incentivize production of more recyclable packaging in other commonly littered items, such as confectionery wrapping, through the introduction of modulated fees. So just to summarize, overall outcomes would be reduction in littering, improving the design, better design and reuse of material content used in packaging, and that would drive us into a much more circular economy with a higher value of reuse of materials used. A shift in costs from the public to the producers of packaging. And if EPR proposals that are being evaluated as part of this reform, recycling policies across the UK, and if we were to go for an all-in DRS scheme, it's estimated that our packaging recycling rate would increase from around 60% to 78% by 2030, which isn't far away. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have at the end of this session.